And at 10, mini candies. The mini candies will be antagonists in the upcoming Fazbear Fanverse Initiative game Five Nights at Candy's 4. They appear to be miniature versions of Candy the Cat, similar to the mini Renas from Sister Location. The mini candies are small, kitten-like animatronics with a blue-colored exterior. They have triangular ears with triangular teeth on their upper jaw. Each one has blackish eyes with large glowing white pupils, and their appearance heavily resembles Candy the Cat from the first game. Obviously. They wear a pair of red overalls with yellow buttons, but given the earlier comparison to the mini Renas, I have a feeling these guys would also crawl into my body while I'm sleeping and then blow me up from the inside, or use my body as an escape route or other classic FNAF tropes. So, yeah, that sounds horrific. And at 9, Monster Vinny. Monster Vinny, also known as the Monster Reverse Puppet, is the final antagonist of Five Nights at Candy's 3. He is the monstrous manifestation of Vinny, this game's version of the puppet. Instead of sharing the same eyes as Nightmare Ann and New Vinny, the eyes appear to be held up by a metal frame inside the mask. The jaw also appears to move like a dummy. The mouth contains many sharp teeth stained red at the tips, and Monster Vinny's mask appears to be dirty or aged, like in a bad way, not like a good whiskey. He sports a blue bow tie and 3 white buttons. He has a purple and blue coloring on his lips and the outside of his eyes. A purple and blue line comes down the sides of his face, you know, the classic FNAF fashion. His hands also seem to come to points with blood at the end. Monster Vinny is also very skinny. Skinnier than me, if you can believe it. While not the scariest animatronic, the jump scare for Monster Vinny is actually pretty scary. And at 8, Chester the Chimpanzee. Look, I love monkeys, but Chester Chimpanzee is one of the antagonists of Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered. Chester shows up again in Five Nights at Candy's 2, but more broken down like the other animatronics when he becomes active on night 2, and that withered appearance from FNAF 2 is what I'm going to be focusing on for referencing in this list. And it makes me sad that I love monkeys. When Withered Chester becomes active in the second game, he can appear on any camera like the other animatronics. His mechanism is different from most other animatronics though. Instead of trying to get to the player from the central hall, he will try to get to the player through the vents. By clicking on the phone in the room Chester is in, the player can scare him away, and then he runs out of sight of the camera. Chester is never seen in the central hall except during a jump scare. He bangs on the vent cover while trying to get in, so the player can listen for when they need to react to him. If left unattended, however, he will enter the vents and loudly climb towards the player. At this point, a jump scare is unavoidable unless the night ends first. And at 7, Shadow Candy. Shadow Candy is the final form of another animatronic from Five Nights at Candy's 3, when their power level grows over 9,000. However, in the first and second game, his appearance is identical to Candy, with the only difference being that he has to be recolored to be a very dark shade of purple, almost black, and has eyes which resemble the Phantom animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. You know what Shadow animatronics are. He also has glowing teeth, like the Shadow animatronics from FNAF 2. Shadow Candy also sports 5 fingers on each hand, indicating that perhaps this was once a human in an animatronic suit, like how the original theories about the FNAF Shadow animatronics consisted of them being potential Springlock victims. But I don't know how this would tie into the lore of the games, because they're supposed to be another animatronic from FNAF 3, which takes place in the 60s, so I don't know. And at 6, Withered Cat. Withered Cat is almost similar to the Withered Rat. They both have the same dominant color and have fallen into disrepair. However, I talk about other versions of the rat enough on this list, so I went with the cat for this number. The cat also has hollowed eyes, with the right eye having stitches. Like the rat, he has a stitch running across his head and some joints, yet he doesn't have a metallic skin or layer showing. Unlike his successors, Old Candy, Candy, and Cindy, the cat himself doesn't have many whiskers. He has a large hole torn in his chest, similar to the Withered Rat, and he has 2 to 3 metallic cubes on his arms. However, unlike his monster counterpart, he has no fanged teeth. He does, however, have exposed endoskeleton fingers along with his left hand and lower left leg, with parts of his upper left leg exposed as well. His body is damaged, as is his head. He also seems to be less damaged than the rat, and only appears on nights 6 and 8 of FNAF 2. Even though he's less damaged than the rat, still creepy. Halfway through and in number 5, Shadow Cat. Shadow Cat is the shadowy form of the monster cat from Five Nights at Candy's 3. It first appears on the pre-night cutscene of Night 3 and is only seen through its jump scare when the player stands in the darkness for too long. This is the pre-9,000 power level Shadow Candy form I was talking about earlier. Shadow Cat, much like the Shadow Rat, shares most of its features from the cat from FNAF 2, with a stitched forehead and hollow eye sockets. The Shadow Cat also shares his appearance with the monster cat from FNAF Attack 3, mainly with his sharp teeth and fangs. It's unclear whether this was done for lore, or if it's just the models that were being reused for time constraints or ease of use, since they were retextured, and time constraints would usually just result in the character reappearing, at least from what I've seen. But again, I don't know, I'm not a game designer, I didn't make these games, I don't know, it's probably for lore. And at 4, Old Candy. Old Candy acts as the replacement for the cat and is one of the antagonists in Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered. He, along with the rat, have been scrapped and stored in the parts and service room. Old Candy looks much larger and bulkier than Candy, as well as having dark blue fur. Like Cat, it lacks a tie and more of its endoskeleton is exposed. He's lacking eyes altogether, his shoulders are barely covered, and his endoskeleton is showing. Your endoskeleton's showing? What? Where? Along with some wires traveling down his arms. This makes him harder to see when he's standing in the doorway, since he doesn't have glowing eyes like the original Candy. Or I guess the newer Candy, since this is the old version. I don't know, man, this stuff, it gets confusing. And at 3, Blank. The Blank animatronic from FNAF and FNAF Remastered is actually very unique in concept, no doubt being inspired by Mangle, however. He is a drawing attraction that is meant for children to write and draw whatever they want all over his body. Kind of like the Blank custom Funko Pops. Over time, the animatronic was obviously withered down, and the withered version from the second game is what we'll be focusing on for this number. Withered Blank is the most withered out of any of the animatronics. All of his suit parts seem to be damaged in one way or another. A large part of the left side of his head is gone, exposing his endoskeleton. His left forearm and upper right arm are missing its exoskeletons, while his right forearm is completely gone. All suit parts below his knees are gone, and there are 2 holes in his torso. One of the holes exposes the endoskeleton. His texture isn't white anymore, rather more of a gray color, like the shirt you forgot to wash that isn't the same anymore. Unless you use today's sponsor, I'm kidding. He appears to be the same as he was in the first game's minigame, but in Night 6's second minigame, the player can see Blank's original appearance, which is really unsettling. I don't know why, it's just like, there's just the pure white, hardly any features. It's creepy. It's really creepy, like Slender Man. And ultimately, in at number 2, Monster Rat. Monster Rat, previously known as Nightmare Rat, is a monstrous manifestation of the original rat that appeared in Five Nights at Candy's 3 as one of the 2 main antagonists. Monster Rat's appearance closely resembles that of a human, with both fixed ears, pointy fingernails, stitched parts, and surprisingly sporting a long rat tail filled with metal pieces. His face seems to sport fangs, glowing red eyes, and a big nightmarish smile. Oh, the whole package. Unlike his other counterparts, Monster Rat is a living creature. Monster Rat is the animatronic I think of when I think of Five Nights at Candy's. I don't know what it is about this guy, but he just makes me uncomfortable. Maybe it's the fact that he appears around the bed that makes me uncomfortable, considering how there's already way too much fan art about that kind of thing in the community, so we don't need any reasons for more of it. But I mean, it's been years since this game was released, so I'm probably a little late on that. Finally, in at number 1, Shadow Rat. Shadow Rat is the final antagonist of Five Nights at Candy's 3. He is a purple version of the Monster Rat, and he appears in the Dreamscape and in the Shadow Challenge. His appearance is just a dark purple version of the Monster Rat, but the true horror of this character comes from the gameplay as well as his appearance. Shadow Rat's Shadow Challenge is by far the hardest night to beat in the entire game, and rightfully so. However, it isn't that combat against him is difficult. The difficulty comes with the Shadow Rat's speed. Shadow Rat is the fastest enemy in the game by far, going from door to door, to moving his head in combat, to going under the bed and then popping back up, and even returning after combat is over. Don't expect to have a second without combat in this challenge. You'll be fighting more than you'll be resting, and that's what makes this scarier than the original Monster Rat. While yes, for some reason the dark purple makes things seem more sinister, the sheer difficulty of the Shadow Challenge will result in you being scared about the night before even making it there. You'll load up the game and be thinking, oh crap, how am I gonna deal with the Shadow Rat? In at 10, Spring Lich. Springlich was a character in the Dormitibus beta. Not much was ever planned for him, and he was one of the two characters modeled by user Golden Nexus, both of which didn't make it into the cut of the final game. Springlich's body is actually turned the opposite direction to its head. This would have constantly made him walk backwards, which was going to be a part of its minigame. That way it would make it possible for him to stumble and fall, causing him to become stunned. And they also appear to be a springlock victim, as they have what appears to be blood vessels or muscles in their suit. They have a decaying head in their mask, and they only have one eye. Great. They have long strips of withering on their mask, and their lower jaw is heavily worn down. Different sized holes cover the rest of their body, especially their upper torso and arm segments. How wonderful. And at 9, Dawnbreaker. Aside from being the reward for a Daedric side quest, Dawnbreaker was expected to be an antagonist in the now cancelled Dormitibus Remastered game. Dawnbreaker appears to be a heavily damaged purple mangled animatronic, the design of which was based on Shadow Freddy from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and presumably on the purple animatronic Hoax character. By his design, he is very similar to the Havoc animatronics. His torso is ripped and torn up, large tears are exposing the endoskeleton underneath, several limbs with hooks instead of feet are sticking out of his torso and his head, making Dawnbreaker similar to a spider. And any animatronic that looks like a spider needs to be put down and sent back to the depths of hell from which it came. And at 8, Molten Evil. Molten Evil is basically the Shadow Bonnie of Dormitibus. It was a Springlock victim and is heavily implied to be related to RWQFSFASXC. Molten Evil is a pure black animatronic rabbit that has melted. They look similar to Toy Bonnie, and is most likely this version's Shadow Bonnie. Molten Evil looks close to what Toy Bonnie looks like, but with some key differences. He is entirely black and appears to have a grimy looking texture to him. His eye sockets are filled with a white color, and a white substance, most likely plasma, is coming out of his eye sockets and running down his face all the way to his jaw. All of his teeth are glowing a bright white as well, and so is his bow tie. His bow tie, however, has melted severely, making it lose its original shape. Gotta love that, huh? Just pure wholesome. And at 7, the Havoc Puppet. The Havoc Puppet is responsible for the creation of every animatronic in the game, aside from one. Havoc Puppet is formed by a cracked and distorted version of the puppet's original mask, which is missing its lower half. The head has a small hole above the place the mouth would be, and 2 pinpoint pupils inside of the eye sockets. The lower half of the main mask features 7 black tentacle-like extensions, 3 at the back and 4 at the front. The side 2 and the front are used as legs, while the other 2 seem to be used like arm-like appendages. The back 3 tentacles seem to be tail-like extensions as well. She also has a crack on the top of her head, and it's wrong. It looks like a giant spider, and we all know how I feel about spiders. I fucking hate them. And at 6, the BOA. The BOA, otherwise known as the Box of Abominations, is an animatronic hybrid from the game that makes us all beg for death. It's also what my parents call me. The main head for the boa belongs to Toy Freddy. He has no ears connected to his head, and his top hat has a few holes in it, resulting in wires poking out. Toy Freddy also has a small hole right above his eye sockets, and a slightly bigger hole on the right side of his head. He's missing his right eye, and his right eye socket has melted slightly. Gotta love that. His remaining eye is pure white, along with his iris. He has no eyelids, and neither do any of the other heads. Both his upper and lower jaw have melted, along with his cheeks. This caused his endoskeleton jaw to be revealed more, even when his jaw is closed. Plus, there's still like 4 other heads, or 5. Like, what the hell? Take it away. Halfway through to number 5, Havoc Freddy. Havoc Freddy is a distorted manifestation accident born from Havoc Puppet, who attempted to make a physical body for the spirits in Purgatory from plasma. When alive, the spirit's name was Ted. Get it? Ted became Fred? Never mind. Havoc Freddy bears a slight resemblance to his real counterpart, but for the most part they look very different. He mainly consists of a slightly dark brown color scheme. He has a giant hole on the right side of his mask, revealing a large portion of his endoskeleton. His right eye hangs out of a hole by just a few wires, consisting mainly of a black color with a red pupil. His left eye has a blue color to it, like his real counterpart. His eyebrows look rather large, with the right one missing a small amount of itself. His top hat appears to be fine though, and it may have some slight damage done to its base, however. A 2-segment long arm is connected to the left side of his head, with it wearing no suit to it. The hand for the arm appears to be missing a finger segment as well, and is holding a microphone. Havoc Freddy doesn't seem to have a suit for his lower jaw, and his entire jaw is just hanging by a few wires. The rest of his body is absolutely destroyed, and it looks extremely unsettling. I don't like it. No. Please stop. And at 4, Golden Call. Golden Call is more or less like Springtrap design-wise. He's a spring-locked suit with a corpse inside of him, and he has become green to his color rotting away. Half of Golden Call's left ear is bent, causing it to stick out in an angle. His other ear is intact, other than some small withering on its sides. His black top hat also seems to have some withering on it, mainly towards the base and the sides. He has one small hole right above his eye sockets from withering, and the hole appears to be connected to the right eye socket, making it slightly bigger than normal. On the left side of his head there is a large hole. He has a bit more withering on the right side of his head too. Another batch of a red substance is sticking to this section of his head, which is most likely blood or something similar because, you know, it's a rotting body. Golden Call has a set of endoskeleton eyes in its head that also have red pupils, and the eyes of the corpse are hanging out of his eye socket and they appear to be blue. He has some withering on his snout and his lower jaw slightly damaged with the edges, and inside there are 2 large balls, which could be organs or something else, but it's most likely other organs, not what you're thinking. Stop it. His entire torso is heavily worn down, and his pelvis has a single hole in the front that reveals what could be some blood vessels or muscles. Yeah. That's not where the balls are, though, don't worry. That's a different organ. That's the organ you were thinking of when I said balls. No, I've said balls too much. And at 3, Soul Cage. The Soul Cage resembles a lamp that has 4 heads of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. Basically, it's an animatronic based on the bad ending from FNAF 3. The Soul Cage is made up of some props from Fazbear Fright. The base of the Soul Cage is Bonnie's torso, with Bonnie's head being connected to it. Chica's head is connected to the left side of its main torso by a metal rod. On the right side of the main torso is Freddy's torso, which is also being connected to the main torso by 2 metal rods. Freddy's torso is tilted to the side, making him stick out. Freddy's head is also connected to his torso, at least. Foxy's head is connected to the main torso by a rather long metal rod in the back of the torso, which is weird. Foxy's head is positioned right above Bonnie's head. Each head that the Soul Cage has contains a single light source in their left eye socket. Each head also has large sharp teeth in their jaws. They have a grimy looking texture to them as well, which may be a reference to the Fazbear Fright's fire. And Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy also don't have their ears anymore. And there's 4 robotic legs, because why the hell not? And in 2, Havoc Chica. Do I even need to explain this? Havoc Chica, aka Maria, is a Havoc animatronic that hails from the Dormitivus universe. She is the Havoc version of Chica, obviously, and is a failed attempt by the Havoc puppet to give her spirit a physical form. While having the same color scheme as Chica, however, the two look nothing alike. The mask Havoc Chica wears has a good amount of damage done to it. Her right eye socket has grown in size, arching upwards towards her feathers. The rest of her mask has small withering in a few places, mainly near her right eye socket and her forehead. She has no eyes at all, resulting in her being blind. Her jaw isn't directly connected to her head either, like the Chica from FNAF 1. Instead, her jaw looks more like her withered counterpart, where her jaw has withering on the sides of it and has some towards the front. Her entire head is attached to a suitless limb segment, making her head stick out of her way and like it sticks out from her body like this. It's grotesque and nauseating to look at. Finally, in at number 1, Garvey. Garvey is the Dormitivus version of Springtrap. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitivus. As a human, he was the man who murdered the missing children. He later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and was then burned to a permanent death in the Fazbear Fright's fire. He looks absolutely horrific. The suit on his limbs and body are heavily tattered and shredded, and his organic remains are far more visible than they were with Springtrap, which just makes it all the more pleasant to look at. His lower jaw is deformed and broken, which disappears on at least one occasion, showing Garvey's corpse, mouth, and jaw. Garvey now has an unnatural animalistic stance as well, walking on all 4 limbs. His limbs appear to be snapped in multiple places as well, alluding to the limbs being bent in unnatural ways, and the fact that his left hand serves as a foot, and his left foot serves as a hand. He's also much bigger than Springtrap or any other threat in the game. He's absolutely terrifying and scarier than any other animatronic in this game, hands down, and he constantly gives me nightmares. That's why I use him in thumbnails so much. Anything that mentions Springtrap, Garvey.